Hello everyone. Tonight we step deep into one of the most terrifying mysteries of the 20th century. A story that has baffled historians, scientists, and investigators for over 60 years. It is known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident. This chilling event took place in 1959, when 9 experienced hikers set off on an expedition in Russia's Ural Mountains. But what was supposed to be an ordinary winter trek turned into a horror story. The hikers never returned alive, and when search teams found them, the conditions of their bodies and campsite were so bizarre that the mystery continues to live on today. Some say it was a tragic accident. Others believe it was a secret military test, while a few even claim something not of this world was responsible. Let us dive into this mystery step by step and see why this case refuses to be solved, even after decades. It all began in January 1959. A group of 10 hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk, led by a young man named Igor Dyatlov, prepared for a difficult expedition across the Ural Mountains. The group was made up of 8 men and 2 women, all in their 20s, and each one of them was highly skilled in skiing, hiking, and mountaineering. Their goal was to reach Mount Otorten, a peak in the northern Urals. They were aiming to achieve the highest level of hiking certification possible in the Soviet Union at that time. It was meant to be tough, but for such experienced adventurers, it was well within their capability. However, only 9 of them would make the final trek, because one hiker, Yuri Yudin, became ill and turned back early. His decision would unknowingly save his life. The group set off with skis, warm clothing, camping gear, food supplies, and a camera to document their journey. They kept journals, wrote songs, and even made playful notes about their progress. Nothing seemed unusual. They were a lively group, full of energy and optimism. But after the last photograph was taken and the last diary entry written, the hikers vanished into silence. Days later, when they failed to return as scheduled, families and friends raised the alarm, and a large search operation was launched. What the searchers discovered was something no one could ever have predicted. The first sign of trouble was the hikers' abandoned tent. It was found pitched on the snowy slope of a mountain called Kolatsa, which in the local Mansi language chillingly means Mountain of the Dead. When rescuers examined the tent, they found it had been slashed open from the inside. The hikers' belongings were still inside. Boots, clothing, food, journals, and cameras. It was as if the hikers had cut their way out in a desperate attempt to flee. Even more disturbing was the fact that they had run into the freezing night barely dressed, some only in socks, without coats or boots, even though the temperature was far below freezing. Search teams followed the footprints leading from the tent. They led down the slope toward a nearby forest. At the edge of the forest, beneath a large cedar tree, searchers found the first 2 bodies. These 2 hikers were dressed only in underwear, their feet bare, and a small fire had been built nearby, suggesting they tried to keep warm. The branches of the cedar tree were broken high up, as though someone had climbed in desperation to look for the tent or to escape something. Not far from them, 3 more bodies were found. Igor, the leader, and 2 others, lying in the snow as if they had tried to crawl back toward the tent but collapsed along the way. This brought the count to 5, but 4 were still missing. It would take months before the remaining 4 bodies were discovered. They were buried under snow in a ravine deeper into the forest. Unlike the others, their injuries were far more severe and difficult to explain. One hiker had a fractured skull, another had multiple broken ribs, and 2 of them were found missing their eyes, while one woman's tongue was gone. Strangely, there was little external damage to their bodies, as if the injuries had been caused by extreme internal pressure, not by blunt force trauma. Even more bizarre was that some of their clothing contained traces of radiation. Investigators were left scratching their heads. How could experienced hikers, strong and skilled, have fled their tent half-naked into the night, and met such horrifying fates? The Soviet authorities conducted an investigation but closed it quickly, declaring the cause of death as a compelling natural force. No further explanation was given, and the files were sealed. This vague conclusion left more questions than answers. Over time, countless theories have been suggested. One popular theory is that an avalanche struck their campsite. Perhaps the hikers heard rumbling snow and panicked, cutting their way out of the tent and fleeing, but there was no clear evidence of an avalanche. and their injuries did not entirely match such a scenario. Another idea is that they were victims of secret military testing. Some believe the Soviet army was experimenting with weapons in the area and that the hikers accidentally stumbled into it. This could explain the radiation found on their clothes and the strange injuries. Others have pointed to UFOs or paranormal activity. Strange lights were reportedly seen in the sky around the same time, fueling speculation that something extraterrestrial was involved. Skeptics, however, lean toward more grounded explanations. They argued that hypothermia and panic could explain much of what happened. In extreme cold, people can behave irrationally, sometimes even removing clothing in a condition known as paradoxical undressing. The broken tree branches and the attempt to build a fire suggest they tried to survive as best as they could. Yet the violent injuries and radiation traces remain difficult to dismiss. Why were some of them so severely hurt, while others showed no such trauma? Why was their tent slashed open from within, as if something terrified them so much that they could not use the normal exit? Another strange detail is the cultural meaning of the mountain itself. Kolatsayako, the mountain of the dead, was considered dangerous by the local Mansi people. Some believe the hikers ignored the warnings of the native tribes and paid the ultimate price. There is also the mystery of their journals and photographs, some of which show them smiling and laughing in the days before their deaths, while others show eerie images of the snow-covered mountain and what some claim are unexplained lights in the distance. For decades, the Dyatlov Pass Incident has fascinated researchers and investigators. Documentaries, books, and even films have been made about it. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case to re-examine possible causes. Their conclusion leaned once again toward a natural explanation, suggesting that a small avalanche and freezing conditions were to blame. Yet many experts and mystery enthusiasts remain unconvinced. The unusual injuries, the missing eyes and tongue, and the presence of radiation keep the case alive as one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. What makes the Dyatlov Pass incident so haunting is not just the tragedy of 9 young lives lost, but the layers of unanswered questions that surround it. Was it simply a natural disaster combined with human error, or was it something far more sinister? Perhaps a secret the government wanted to hide, or could it even have been an encounter with something beyond our understanding? We may never know for certain. The mountains keep their secrets, and the snow that buried the hikers that night also buried the truth. Even today, when hikers and researchers visit the site, they often describe an eerie feeling in the air, as if the mountain remembers what happened. A memorial now stands at the Dyatlov Pass, honoring the 9 hikers who perished under such mysterious circumstances. Their names are remembered not only as victims of a tragedy, but as part of one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the modern age. As long as questions remain unanswered, the Dyatlov Pass incident will continue to stir curiosity, fear, and speculation. It is a chilling reminder that even in our modern world, there are still mysteries we cannot explain. So, what do you think happened on that snowy night in 1959? Was it an avalanche, secret military testing, or something far stranger? The Dyatlov Pass incident remains a riddle carved into history, a puzzle that no one has been able to solve completely. Until new evidence emerges, it will forever be one of the most haunting mysteries of all time.